Like, if you can cut through that fodder, you'll survive. The question is having the discipline to cut it out and say, guys, we don't need it. It's not solving a problem. It's just adding more noise to an already noisy world.
Dude, you just made the soundbite for the episode. That was it.
Right.
This is Michael Beck. I am here with my partner in crime, Mr. Chad Horn, and our fantastic guest today is none other than Phil Hieronymus Crawford. That is not his middle name. I just made it up. I know that is not it.
I'm going to take that middle name now and change my driver's license and passport. I like that. It rolls off the tongue much better.
Yes, that's gravitas. I just upped your equity.
You're a giver.
Phil, thank you for coming on, dude.
Phil.
Yeah, before we even started, it's been fun. So thank you in advance. How are you?
My pleasure. Good, man. Always good to hang out with you guys. Yeah, I always enjoy it. Whether it's walking the hall at a show or doing a podcast, man. It's just three wild and crazy guys. So
Phil probably wouldn't even remember the first time he and I met, but it was very fun. I think we were doing race cars at RLC, like for Ferraris, Lamborghinis. You ever remember going to an event like that?
I do remember going to an event like that. Yes.
No, I was so drunk when I got in the Ferrari.
Yes. Yes, I do remember that event.
Okay. I was like, as far as you, I know you've done that like many years in a row. So but I only did it once.
I don't think I've done it since. I've done the Porsche experience, but that's not part of a convention down in Atlanta. But I remember the one at RLC. Like that was off the chain. That was awesome.
Did you have the same problem I had? It was like a few years back, but like I couldn't fit in a lot of those things. I was too tall.
I just forgot how to drive. I was so excited. That was my problem. I can fit. I'm short in stature, right? They're built for guys like me, but like you get inside that thing, I want to go fast. You know, if you're not first, you're last kind of mentality, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Need a cougar next to you.
Really
motivates you.
Yes.
Well, hey, actually, let's get this party on track. So we've known Phil for years. Phil, at least when I started coming on the scene, I started hearing about you at CKE and doing all the really cool stuff you had going on over there, right? Or I believe that's where it was. I'm not screwing this up. Am I missing the people? I do.
You're right.
No, that was me.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
That was a bald-headed guy. That was me.
That's when he had his Fabio hair.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
And then you moved on to this company, Adyen, right?
Yep.
And that is a different place for you, right? I mean, all your combined skills lead to this place, right? But kind of tell us about your journey there. Like you've changed some roles, and clearly you've had some surprises as you change roles and learn some stuff. But what's that like?
So look, I've been blessed, and I've said it before, to be and work for some amazing brands in C-level roles, from Yard House to Shake Shack to Godiva to last before this role at CKE.
Yeah. And
this opportunity, which is now on, I call it the green side, because now on the vendor side versus what now is the other dark side, really is unique, because playing in the fintech payment space that supports not only restaurants, but I overlook hotels and hospitality and lodging, really was kind of that catalyst to be a mini CEO of a vertical in a growing business that's evolving as the world itself is evolving with regards to payments. We all have phones. We all have digital wallets. We all have apps for payment. And the light bulb had come off when I had been speaking back in the days, about how payment technology and payment data is going to revolutionize our industry. When I always use the Minority Report example, where data insights, the things we don't really change are our payment ways that we pay. And so this opportunity came across, and I'm like, you know what? I don't ever want to be later in life and say, I wish I would have done that. Like, you know what? I'm still young at heart, end of body and soul. I'm going to take this opportunity to always expand and grow as a leader, but also a person, and challenge myself something that's radically different.
Has it been a stretch?
You know what? It hasn't been a stretch, believe it or not, because I'm still playing in the food and beverage space. I've always been that innovator, entrepreneurial kind of thinking outside of the box.
Yeah.
And it actually follows exactly how this business is ran. We're 16 years old. We're very lean and mean. We build and iterate fast and learn and progress. So a lot of that Silicon Valley, I know it's not an 80s show, but the Silicon Valley TV show as it was,
we're close.
Is in our ethos here of how we are. We're extremely agile, but we're also extremely aggressive and extremely passionate. That kind of follows me. So a guy that grew up in Southern California that likes to, hey bro, what's up?
Are you an HB guy? Like, what part of SoCal are you? Let's take a quick side journey.
I'm a Valley girl. Like I grew up in the
San Fernando Valley,
San Gabriel,
are you up Trevigo, like
San Gabriel. I had the Valley girl ladies thing, right? So I grew up in the Valley. So, but I did most of my stint down towards the beach. So, living near the coastline, whether it be in San Clemente or Dana Point or Newport, and then going to the East Coast, obviously later in life for shacking different opportunities. Now coming back to New York, although I don't live here, like getting that energy and that vibe, like. My good friend Jeff Utes, when I first came to New York for that Shake Shack opportunity, was like, New York's one of those cities out there. When you get off that train or that plane, you're either going to get run over or you're going to run somebody over. There is no in between. And that's has resonated to this day. So when I get here, I'm so energized and pumped. It fits with who I am as a person and my ethos.
Yeah.
And so this opportunity was like that extension of how do I take all these years of knowledge of food and beverage and leadership and blah, 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 and move it into an organization that's still young and nimble. They can leverage some of the things that I've learned over my decades of work and really reposition this brand into the spaces worldwide and build product and solutions and partnerships to further disrupt an industry, but through a payment lens. So loving it, absolutely loving it, crushing it, having a blast. I have great people I work with, great leadership as well. And look, I don't look back. So challenging to a point where it's different than sitting behind and being a CTO, CIO.
Yeah.
It's just a different challenge, but it's a positive, encouraging challenge.
Phil, we know, but what does Adyen do? Tell people because
for people in the bleachers,
because all my questions are predicated on the audience listeners knowing what the company does. So let's start there.
Well, that's actually a great cue, and because Adyen itself is not really known in the States. We're a Netherlands-based, out of Amsterdam, payment provider company, but we're different because we actually own our tech stack end-to-end. We have some rather large merchants around the world. We do stuff with Microsoft or Uber, right? As a good example. We do stuff with McDonald's. We do stuff for a variety of e-com businesses, platform businesses, but also, and consumer solutions as well. So in our ethos, we are a payment solutions provider. We sell processing. But we also sell a bunch of different suites as well underneath that. Fraud tools, reporting tool analytics. We also have our banking licenses. We can do issuance as well. So we are a very complex organization, but also simple at the same time. So in the United States, our name is coming up. It's one of our biggest growth verticals to go after a payment space that traditionally has been dominated by big banks and big mercantile facilities. We are a digital-focused first company. We are a technology ground-up company. So some of our competition, if you look at the Gartner charts, are going to be the worlds of like the Stripes, as an example, or the Freedom Pays, or the Shift Forward. That's our ethos of who we are. But we're different.
Contrast that though, different, right? I mean, outside of we have a really cool guy that's over there running it.
Yeah, exactly right.
What are the other things that our industry go? You know what? We need to go to Adyen.
I mean, I think our biggest USP, like for us, is that because we are our own journey, we are our own tech stack, we own the code end to end. We built our entire infrastructure from our own. We're not bolting on acquisitions. We're not leveraging some third party, Amazon, Google Cloud to run it all. It's our own DCs. It's our own pipes. It's our own artificial intelligent languages. It's our own reporting stacks. We own the code base, which is radically different. We control our own destiny. Wow. So there are no other middlemen in the picture. It is us and then. And that really resonates with differently because we are a different way of conducting business in that payment space. Typically there's gateways and there's multiple engines to tie things together. You come to a one-stop shop with Adyen and you get all the benefits and features of what big modern banks have done, but also what next generation technology companies done in the fintech space, and you package into what Adyen has grown into this world. I mean, to the point that, we do 1 trillion transactions with an incredible market cap, and we're still very, very young and nimble, which is amazing. It just shows the power of our brand. And a lot of our merchants never leave us because of that uniqueness, but also our ability to iterate and become bleeding edge and really understand what the merchants need, but also marry it up, creating that frictionless environment for the guests and the consumers.
Phil,
go ahead. Sorry.
The U.S., I mean, not just the U.S., but particularly the U.S. payments industry has a bad reputation for being frustratingly non-innovative.
Yeah,
some of them are spending
near
zero
too.
or near zero on R&D and technology and improving their product and technology. So for people who may not know, why is that? And how do you guys solve that? And why are you different?
Yeah. Without naming names, I think the number one thing is a lot of the payment systems in the States are based off of old legacy bank. Old legacy bank runs old legacy tech, quite frankly. It comes down to that. Think of it the old analogy of running the old railroad systems off of old archaic things that were built back in the early 1900s. And they have been able to modernize because the world hasn't required it. Now the world has required it. I also think the U.S. internet itself sometimes puts itself in this bubble that we don't want to look outside our four walls or outside our own bubble. We are it. Look, the world has changed, whether or not we want to admit to it or not.
Yeah.
So outside influences coming in start seeing these alternative payment methods, utilizing digital wallets or digital apps and so forth, different local currency or local payment methods, right? There's been this whole advent of growth around the world that the United States has not adopted yet. And we're going to start to adopt it. That's just why you see a lot of restaurant companies going overseas. So you look at Adyen, if I want to grow from the US overseas, how am I going to go do business in the UK or in parts of LATAM or APAC, where they may have an Alipay or a WeChat Pay or a different kind of Swift Pay? Adyen comes in there and says, we've already got those currencies ready to go. You just turn on the switch in the back end, you're ready to rock and roll. Banks then themselves don't have that flexibility because they don't have the acquiring licenses, the rights to do those in the other parts of the country. So you have these modern technology firms like ourselves that have built this infrastructure that can work in a variety of different mediums, but also make it seamless then for the end merchants to conduct business overseas and domestically as well. So I think a lot of it is big banks have become the 800-pound gorillas, but have become these 800-pound gorillas, and they don't have the ability to shift and pivot and be as agile as the newer guys like us, because we've taken a more broad stroke approach, but really refined and looked where the world is going in the industry and built accordingly technology systems to adopt and adapt to those.
There's so much to unpack there. Because one of the things that we found when we went to NRF, like we started out the year, we went to CES, Chad and I went, we geeked out on all the newest, hottest stuff, right?
Awesome.
Candyland, right? Next year we got to go. And then we went to NRF. And what we figured out, or as we believe is true, is that top of funnel for tech is CES.
Mm-hmm.
Top of funnel for the world is CES. Top of funnel for restaurants is NRF for tech. At least my assumption, right? That because
for retail.
Kevin Bentley goes, the hospitality industry shamelessly steals from retail all the time because that's where they're going to get it from. Exactly, right?
Of course.
And what one of the things that excites me about Phil Crawford going to a place that is in retail is that you are a pollinator. You're a honeybee. You bring honey back to the hive. You're admittedly a hospitality guy at heart. And I know that there's things you go, man, I could bring that back to hospitality and we could use this stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And so what are the surprises that you're seeing out there? What are the things that Adyen's doing that goes, man, this should have been table stakes 10 years ago? Or if the world knew, we need to get them on this, and why?
Yeah, man, you know what? It's such a cool thing because you're right. You look at, and I love the food and beverage and hospitality industry. It's done me very well.
Yeah.
But it's so far behind.
Yeah.
Because they're really risk adverse. Let's be honest. The margins are different than retail, hospitality in general, and they're dealing with people's senses and so forth. So when you go to an NRF or you go to an NRA and you look at CES, these next generation things, like you look at AI, and I know we all hate that buzzword. I hate it because it means so many things to so many different people.
It's right at there with disruption.
Yeah,
I don't hate it yet. I still like it.
LLMs and natural language processing and all that other garbage acronyms
yeah.
you can send out there. But like that's what we've done, and we can bring back. So the two things, like you took it artificial intelligence. So we have this cool AI tool that we've recently launched that actually allows us to help do fraud mitigation on the fly. Like it is amazing because we can look at all these different metrics that are transpiring in the processing world and the processing life cycle of a charge, and be able to redirect based on the patterns we see and help our merchants
Phil does
identify
not buy
fraud.
video games, and now he's buying video games
Exactly.
in mass, right?
But typically that's done manually in the back end. Oh, wow. These algorithms run real time, and so they're always updating, always becoming Skynet, and that's a bad example. But they're coming alive in the community.
Though it's good.
Exactly, typical reference. Like that's one thing that I want to take back, and AI is coming back into restaurants. Yeah. But that's behind the scenes. It's all the stuff you don't see that's the magic sauce, I think is one thing. Another thing too, from the credit card processing side, is doing things like least cost routing. You know, in the back of the cards, you see those other symbols besides Visa on the front or MasterCard. There's a whole other layer of debit networks on there that actually don't have to go through interchange. And again, we write these utilities that allow merchants to process, but through a cheaper rate.
So,
and there's actually big savings.
One of my questions, though, is it because you are the direct line from it sounds like, the consumer to the fulfillment of payment, right? There's not so many fingers in the pie along the way. How significant is that impact to your customer?
I think it's incredibly impactful.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because the more people you have in, the more people touch it. More importantly, from a technology standpoint, the more stuff can break. Right? So a lot of people buy payment processing, and again, I'm not in the sales side of the business.
No, yeah.
Price.
Yeah.
Yeah, but by the time you look at the bottom line price, you add on reporting, and you add on fraud, and you add on data construction, you add on other engines on top, the price compounds. You may not see it in your statement, but you have an ancillary invoice here, an ancillary invoice here, an ancillary invoice here. Then you got to bolt all these things together from enterprise, and before you know it, you're like, man, I've added so much more complexity to the business that I'm trying to run. It becomes cumbersome, and now you have friction points, and it affects the consumer. Our world is, let's strip all that crap out. Let's make it simple from end to end and just encompass it all into one. So that's why, the Adyen Uplift product, which is why we call it, which is, one of our engines for artificial intelligence and our least cost routing things that allow these merchants to take advantage of the best in class tech systems we have in place. So we're building solutions that allow our merchants to help their consumers. And at the end, everybody wins. That's what's cool about this whole gig. And we're building more and more and more because think about how much information we've got. The unlock for us is data, period. We are sitting on troves and troves and troves of information. And it might take us a year or two to get some of this stuff out, but when it gets out there, it is so impactful. It is so revolutionary that our merchants clamor for it. And then more people start coming onto the Adyen platform because they start seeing the immediate benefits of what we're trying to accomplish worldwide.
Phil,
give a question because I got one.
So you mentioned, most people just think about payments as cost, but how do you and how do the Adyen team think about the impact of technology, fintech done right? What you guys do, the impact on the guest experience for restaurants. How do you guys talk about that?
Yeah, I've always been a big advocate that the experience is not only from the consumer side, but also your employee side, right? The experience is a full 360 purview of inside the four walls. People use the word omni-channel like there's no tomorrow. I know, right? Your eyes popped up.
It's another AI.
It's another AI thing.
Yeah,
I use the word omnipresent in a different way. You're always present in these situations. So especially with the advent of COVID, you have QR payment, you have app payment, you have web, you have in-store. If I can tie all those disparate things together, utilizing one single PSP or a payment processor like Adyen, now I can see how Mr. Beck is transacting with us in all these different ways, right? And now this is a trove of information. And I can then pass that information back to our merchants and say, Mr. Beck likes to shop on the app. Why are you emailing Mr. Beck? Mr. Beck wants something pushed to him. because we're getting his insights, and we can understand how he shops, where he shops. The amount of insights that are there is astronomical once you bring the whole 360 view together, which is one of our things. So I work in the unified commerce pillar, which is that ecosystem of bringing all the different tangible things into one. We have a digital pillar, which is your traditional e-commerce. Then we have a platform pillar where we might power a point of sale systems back in embedded payments. So all of these things come together to get you a full 360 view of how your merchants and consumers come together. And ideally, it's frictionless. So if Mr. Beck doesn't have one profile here, one profile here, one profile here, one profile here, from a payment standpoint, we can now have a shared token across. And now it's an incredibly much more seamless kind of interaction with the merchant.
So that opens up something that, so I have we have a colleague, you probably know him too, but I'll anonymize it for the sake of this, that was working with at the time a POS company that claimed to be more of a loyalty platform. And they said, well, we can't identify the person, but we can sure identify the card and build profiles around the card. And dancing around the idea of GDPR, PII, that's an interesting place. And how, I mean, some, like if you're in England, they're all over you.
Oh, yeah.
Right. If you're here, not so much, but it's starting to go that way. And this data that we have, and you mentioned attributes or profiles, it feels like there's a really delicate line to dance on. We build these profiles on people or on buying habits or on a card number. Like, how's that work? I mean, high level, or even if you know, I mean, that's something that's like clicking off my head. Well, if I can track that card, I'm tracking the person, but then how can I say I'm not tracking the person?
Yeah. So
if I'm tracking the card?
You hit the nail on the head. The question is, how do I anomalize it enough?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not identifying that you're actually Michael Beck. Hence the idea of tokenization. So you have to be able to token and then untoken that information within inside the same merchant. Now I can't cross border. I can't tell you that Michael Beck shopped at Louis Vuitton for his satchel, right? And then go and then how do they know it's not a satchel? And then went down the way to go to In-N-Out, right, and buy a burger and tie the two together. Yes. You can't, it's just two extremes at one time. Put the internet in the satchel to go back to catch a flight on your first class jet. Those kind of tied together, you have to have reciprocity. You need to have transfer of data, sharing of tokens. That's where it gets really sticky and issued. But if you keep the token within inside the same ecosystem, then that becomes the unlock. Then I can really identify who they are, because now we're not dealing with your stored token is tied to your profile in your own CDP or CRM. Then I'll understand how that is.
And if I opt in for a loyalty program, then I can be identified?
If depending on the loyalty provider, yeah. If I'm actually securing the information you give, like if in your loyalty program, whatever it is, the more information you give, and they can tie that payment token to Michael Beck, address, phone number, birth date.
So I've opted in now to take my token and marry it to me.
Yeah,
right?
Correct.
Not marketing against a person like Michael Beck, but now to Michael Beck.
To Michael Beck. Now, but there's also a way you can wait longer term. Imagine you can anomalize it. So imagine us that has all these data points, and this is kind of science fiction in a way, but also reality at the same point, where I can understand patterns and I can understand personas, but I'm identifying who you are because it's anomalized. Then I might be able to look at that data and say, this profile looks like a Michael Beck, walks like a Michael Beck, speaks like a Michael Beck, but it may not be Michael Beck. It's an identity of what Michael Beck looks like. That in and of itself becomes a marketing goldmine, because then I can say,
target Michael Becks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It may not be Michael Beck, and that becomes a big unlock for marketers in the different verticals: retail, food and beverage, hospitality, and it's personalized.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Phil, you want? I was.
We try to keep it balanced.
There's a movement in the US. It's been underway for a while by the POS ecosystem to own the payments. How does Adyen?
There's a movement. Good term for it. It's a movement.
It is a movement.
How do you view that, and pros and cons, and your position in that move?
Look, I know we actually power a lot of payments for point of sale companies. Like we're their back end engine. I will not name the companies. I don't think that's appropriate at this thing. You can go figure it out. But when you go to company X and you utilize their embedded payments, they're processing through somebody.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we do some of the largest enterprises in the world as their backend processor. And you know what, though? Here's a benefit. At the end of the day, it's up to the merchant. If the merchant wants to come direct to Adyen, let them. If they have a value to go directly to the point of sale system and use embedded payments, let them. The POS system might give them a different level of support. They might tie it into hardware, into their software, into their menu management. There's these POS companies that sell a variety of solutions. They now become restaurant technology in a box. And if that includes payment processing, I have one number to call. And so there's a value add to that to some restaurants to go after that, or hotels. Please, if we can offer that more seamless integration for the restaurant or hotel that includes payment processing, absolutely. You're still processing it through us, maybe on a back end. You may not know it, right, as the end clientele, but it still offers more value to the merchant, and again, it gives them the best of choice.
Awesome.
Thinking about, I mean, just a slight shift here is, we're about to come into we're actually in show season, right? As it's now warming up. The first couple of waves have come in, right? We did our last show. And you and I and a bunch of people we know are heading off to the multi-unit restaurant technical show, or better known as MERTEC. What is it, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, or 10th or 13th? Let's say that, in Vegas. So, Viva Las Vegas. So everybody's heading to Las Vegas. So thinking about that, right? Last year, there were a bunch of announcements made on technologies that were coming out, right? New kinds of IoT, smart room technologies. Dynamic pricing was the big buzz in the middle. Actually, MERTEC last year, dynamic pricing was a big deal, right? And so all those things in mind, like some things make it through the funnel, some things die on the vine. What's here? What's fluff? And what's the awesomeness you think is really going to be, and what's going to stick? Like, I know that's a lot to bite off.
Wow.
Grab what you want there.
From last year, or I think new this year?
Yeah.
Like you kind of alluded to it earlier. I think we're going to see a lot of the technologies that are coming out of the retail show make it into the food and beverage show. And as much as we start talking about, we keep talking about AI, because AI, it's just going to be about more efficiency.
Well, AI
solutions
is table
that come
stakes
out
at this point, right? You should assume it's baked into the new solutions being made, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is it? And I derailed you though, but what are the things that we saw? Like I saw cool stuff that it was, I think Samsung or HP was doing it, where it's seeing where I'm looking.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in, right?
That's cool.
Yeah.
Like,
but what's the new hotness?
I mean, I think, and I forgot the name of the company. I think you and I maybe looked at it together. I think the more referenceable solutions that are taking real-time analytics on the fly, meaning site recognition maps based off of facial recognition and or persona recognition outside and inside the four walls of the restaurant for optimization, whether it be for work line flows or consumer flows.
Yeah.
I also think efficiencies with regards to traditional work tasks, such as labor scheduling, will continue because of some of the labor issues we got going on in certain states, from hiring to onboarding to offboarding. I also think some of the technologies for inventory making, where you can take a quick shot of the inventory and it scans it all, like that technology was off the charts. I forgot where it was.
Clients.
Oh, sorry, shameless plug. I didn't even know that.
Nomad Go, everybody.
Anyways, there you go.
It's just on my mug.
It's on your mug? Oh, see, I didn't know that. Like, to me, I mean, that's honest. That's a solution that resonated with me. We saw it last year.
Yeah.
Right? And it's only going to gain momentum. It's not about the traditional technologies we've seen. Yeah. It's what's going to change the consumer sentiment, because there's so many more choices now that are out there. Before it was like Web3, right? Which was great, wonderful. Or it was about your dynamic pricing, like you said a little bit ago. But really, it's how do we minimize from A to B and shorten that path? Yeah. And those efficiencies gained for both merchants and guests. I think really we're going to see it at hopefully more on these shows. Now, again, is it going to be something that's life-changing and radically changes the world? I hope so.
Yeah.
I really do. I just don't know if we're going to see it there. I hope I'm pleasantly surprised that we will. Yeah. But I think it's going to be more advancement off of foundation stuff that's already been built.
Well, there's so many solutions out there. Like we were talking about this last week, Chad, about, or actually beginning of the month, we wrote a thing called Sasquatch, right? SAAS Squatch. Mm-hmm. And this is this giant beast of accumulated fees that each one of them represents the promise of 3% back on something, whether it's food or labor.
Oh, yeah.
And if I was able to line item each of those fees and stack them together might actually equal 100%, and nobody should be paying any fees for anything if all those things are true, right? And so in the pile of SaaS fatigue or Sasquatch, like, what is it? I mean, there's things you just have to have, right? I have to have a PO system. I have to take payments.
Yep.
What are the things that, and maybe we don't even want to take this, like, I'm not touching that with 10-foot pole. What are the things that people shouldn't be getting worried about right now? Yeah, but what is it? What might be a distraction, I guess, is a better way to say, like, because sometimes companies just get so worried about the software. Like, we stand at companies all the time, and sometimes they focus on CRM so hard they forgot to sell.
Look, I mean, go back. I've always said it's simple. What are you trying to do? What's your accomplishment? What's your touch point with the guest? Focus on that. You can't be everything to everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be McDonald's. I get it. Everybody wants to be Chick-fil-A and have the greatest tech inside the restaurants. At the end of the day, sometimes simplicity is key, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a kiosk doesn't work for your property. Then don't put it in.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason you don't see those in certain brands. You see them in some brands, and they're sitting in a corner collecting dust because you still have a cashier sitting in front. Maybe you want to change your model, and most people want to go digitally. They don't want to talk to people at the restaurants anymore. Maybe you double down and invest on an app experience that's so spot on to your brand that becomes the unlock, right? Maybe you don't need massive drive-through technology. Maybe you don't need digital menu boards. Like,
maybe you don't need a drive-through. You do 10-minute window times.
Like, there isn't like this smoking bullet kind of approach. Yeah. It's really going, again, I've said this in my past. You can try to do everything under the sun you see at a show.
Yeah.
And you can put so much tech into a restaurant. Now you have unlimited amount of tech debt. And now you have to worry about integrations and all this stuff working together.
Maintenance.
But more importantly, you bog down your employee and staff. They're like, the hell with this. There's so much automation in this place. I can't even do my job because I'm worrying about what's going to break or what's not working correctly. And I'm doing wires. Like, it complicates the business, which is already a complicated business on top of that. Yeah. So why do it? Like, streamline your operation, streamline your tech, and just choose the pieces that work for you, period.
Mm-hmm. If somebody has to explain it too long, it's probably not it.
It's probably not it. Yeah, you're right. And there's some cool stuff we've seen. Yeah. I've seen stuff that, like, it scans your bag before stuff goes out, and it tells you condiments and all that. Awesome. How about just train your staff? Oh, what a novel idea, right? And let's count how many ketchups we're putting into a bag. Let's make sure we have a standard SOP of 2. Like, just some basics that go into it.
Please, I think sometimes you have a great day. Like, basic, like Chick-fil-A learned that one, right? You know, it's our pleasure. Yeah. That went a long way.
It did. I think sometimes we think that technology is a solve for everything, when sometimes it's just common sense.
I mean, this doesn't describe any of our peers in the restaurant, but my dad just said, you can't fix stupid, right? Like, and so you got to get your operation down. Mm-hmm. Everything. You can't put a Band-Aid on something that isn't healed yet or isn't ready to heal. You got to get things, foundation down, good service, good food. That's always the main thing, right?
And this is coming from a tech guy. Like, I would love to put as much tech in a restaurant, but sometimes it just doesn't make sense. You got to put the things. Now, there are things behind the scenes you could potentially do, like look at supply chain tools. You should absolutely automate as much as you should for ordering and getting away from pen and paper. Like, some of those things make sense. I get it, right? But again, if you're running a massive chain and you're all about data, find a way to get work with a company that has open data. They're actually going to give you your data, not hold it hostage by some crazy monthly fee, and then do something with it. A lot of folks, I know we're on a tangent here, but a lot of folks say, I want all the data. Honestly, what are you going to do with it? Like, what question are you trying to answer? Yeah. Like, do you know even what to do with data? You have an ETL layer. Like, it's so mind-blowing when you go to these shows. And I hope there's some great speakers. And to me, for once in my life, I'm not one of those speakers, so it's kind of good because I just won't shut up for an hour and a half.
Impossible.
But, like, it's impossible. But, like, I want to walk away from some of these things and say, tell me something that the audience can walk away with tangibly, it's meaningful, and not be the same resonant story for the next 6 to 7 months it shows, period.
Yeah. Well, isn't that the truth? Yeah, Chad, Shireen Kamsia over at Akira, right? She has a very strong opinion on data. And So they have a theory over there that, people get lots of rich data, and to your point, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Or there's a big sandwich chain that they were talking about in the same context, and they get all this data, and they hire an analyst, and they have to pay that analyst to sit in a room and figure out what it is, and they hand out some kind of summary of what it all means. That data goes to the executive team. The executive team goes, and then they call the store and go, do better, right?
Exactly.
And it's all hindsight,
Do better.
right? Yeah. And so our friend over at Akira said, well, they don't need that. The store needs the data, but they don't need to be analysts to do the data. So how about just storytelling through data? Here's what is happening. Here's what you need to do. Prescriptive data, not data because operators don't have time to go, oh, look at this bar chart. That's a good bar chart. And that pie chart, that says a lot.
Exactly.
Right. And so I think you have a real strong point. Like, what are you going to do with it? And so at certain levels, if you can afford an analyst and it makes sense to the business, sure.
Yeah.
But
Why not?
Prescriptive for those that don't, right?
Yeah. Or why not find a tool that you can manipulate that will give you the insights on the fly in a dashboard? It tells you how to run your business better, more efficiently. I can have these. I can have a system that gives you 1,000 reports. 1,000 reports doesn't mean beep, same idea. But like, there you go. It's like, my Goonies data, booty trap. No, it's a booby trap. That's what I said, booty trap. Right? I mean, that's exactly what it is. It becomes these booby traps of information that have no relevancy whatsoever.
You're geeking out.
I'm geeking out.
No, babe, absolutely. But you do geek out on data. Like, oh, look at all that. But what does that do? What are you trying to get? Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we do here. I can look at tons of information in order to analyze what we should do as a business from a food and beverage standpoint or hospitality based off of payment trends, right? And based on where we need what products to build. It's all, our decisions are based on concrete rules and metrics off of data. But I could literally make any data look like it's the greatest data in the world, but it's not solving a problem. I need to use data that solves a problem.
So you brought up something, and Chad, you know about this. So, LinkedIn, I'm a huge fan, and a lot of us spend a lot of time there. It's where our tribes are. It's where we all get together. It's the world's biggest B2B trade show, and it happens all day, 24 hours a day.
Never heard of it. What is it again?
LinkedIn, I think. Lincoln.
I should check it out.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a place. And it's got data, right? And so some of us are discovering new things they have. They have some new reports, and they can look up, how... I don't know, there's a report that says how effective you are on LinkedIn, right? And so everybody last week sees this report, and they all start running it, and they're comparing each other. Look at my numbers. Look at your numbers. And somebody did a mic drop moment and showed their numbers. It was really good. And then somebody made the comment and said, this is so useful. And I looked at the data, and I go, there isn't a damn thing in there that's useful to anybody other than going,
exactly.
There wasn't anything on that report that said anything useful about who's reading you, seeing you, you need to get to move the needle. It's
bragging rights.
Yeah, it's vanity metrics, right?
That's all it is.
And when I heard the word useful, I love the report, I love the vanity metric, but when somebody said this is useful, I'm like, it is absolutely not. Tell me one thing you can use it for, right?
It wasn't used for them. It was used for LinkedIn to drive more people to use whatever engine it is, because they reversed it to get their own metrics to say, wow, we did this report. Now everybody's trying to mimic that. And that actually shows the FOMO approach, right?
Yeah,
to your point.
Gamification, right?
That's it. Yeah, wow. I completely agree with you. It's some of the things are anything in any organization. Nobody's perfect. There's some useless stuff that comes out that's a mind suck, which like if you can cut through that fodder, you'll survive. The question is having the discipline to cut it out and say, guys, we don't need it. It's not solving a problem. It's just adding more noise to an already noisy world.
Dude, you just made the soundbite for the episode. That was it.
Right.
That was.
And I want to.
That was impactful.
That was good, and I want to elaborate on that. Connect the dots between a brand's what becomes noise, what their technological ceiling is in relation to their people, the quality of their people, the quality of their culture. What's the correlation there?
I mean, I've always been a culture nut personally, right? I mean, I think that if you look at the insights you get from your team, it means the world. I think that if you, and again, I'm gonna answer your question, but also not answer it in the same kind of context. Like people do these employee surveys, it's a good example for data and insights, right? And some of them are just horse shit. Let's be honest with you, because
they don't really want the answer.
They don't want the answer.
It's optics to the employee that you may care, but then the employees get pissed because they know the company doesn't care.
Correct. Those that take those insights and going back to those insights that actually are actionable, and those companies that take the time to do the insights right, and basically open the kimono and get all the information, but then also regurgitate and then teach the teams, management, all of the people that answer the questions and make the impactful changes based on those data are the ones that win. That then create the culture where people want to stay and want to grow and foster. Yep. Same with restaurant reports, right? Same with organizational enterprise reports, whatever it might be, whatever metrics are behind the scenes. If they become tangible, actionable, authentic information that people then can tie back and say it's not just some minutia information, that then drives culture for culture change because people have an impact. Yep. And that's the key. If I can have a resonated impact on how the business and becomes measurable when the business cares about it, I'm going to care, I'm going to stay, I'm going to drive. Adyen believes in that. I'm so shameless plug for him at now, which is why I love it. Because we have a very open orchestration, we have a very open office, we're very open in our feelings, but we're also very mindful of like who we are and how we get better. Like we don't cower behind email, we don't cower behind these things. We want to have the feedback, good, bad, or indifferent, because it's going to make everybody better. So and it gets back to your data question, like you can have tons of it, but unless it can do something, move a needle, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
I hope I answered your question in a way that made no sense. No,
it was perfectly mind-numbing. No, it was on point. And we do have to wrap up a little bit. I do want to close out with talking about where we're going to be going next. But I think the salient point of the last 5 minutes or so is really don't measure things you don't care to fix.
Yeah, that's right? Your soundbite. You're right. You're right. I mean, it's a mic drop.
Yeah,
that is. You're absolutely right. If you're afraid to ask the question, don't ask the question. Yeah. Because you may not like the results. But those companies, and like myself with my teams, I want to hear it. I want to hear it firsthand, the good, bad, and the ugly. You know, and you should put the overlay of the song from the movie.
Yeah, exactly. And then we all look at sideways at each other. And we go to each camera. Very Family Guy style too. Dude, this is awesome. So you're going to Mertech next week, or coming up, and where else are we going to see you the rest of this year? You're going to be at NRA. You're going to be RLC. Like where are we else? Going to see? So
Adyen, we're going to do a bunch of things. So Adyen is going on kind of a tour because we got to get our name out there on our brand. Yep. So we'll be we'll be doing some dinners. We'll be doing some events with our friends at Branded. Oh, doing some cocktails and connections, continuing we did last year.
That is a fantastic thing. It's just a quick thing, like for the people who don't know what that is, what is cocktails and connections?
So look, it's an after party of the event. The idea there is a very non-threatening environment. Yeah. That's not the right way to say it, but it's basically a get together of all of our friends
to celebrate. Birthday, let's be real.
It's Shatsy's birthday. Funny, he has like 12 of them a year. I don't get it.
I know.
Sometimes 2 in the same month. It's basically a way for all of us to get together and exchange ideas and thoughts, but in a social environment, right? Yeah. I may not know who you are, but it puts it in an environment that's non-threatening, open environment, off-premise, so it becomes a fun but also educational and just kind of a good party. That's what it is, to make friends.
It's kind of got the reputation of the room you should be in, and if you're in the room, to your point, if you're there, it's comfortable because you know the people are there should probably be there. Make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Right.
And it's not the same crowd. It's the same people that everybody wants to go to. So we're doing one at Mertech. We'll do one at RLC. We'll do one at NRA. We'll do one at FS Tech, and we'll do one at QSR.
Awesome.
So, and as well as dinners. And the idea is that we want to carry this forward. That look, we're in this industry because we're people. Yep. We're people first. We have friends, but we also want to invite everybody. Memories are made through restaurants and through engagements. Yeah. And I realize it's not for everybody, but I want the introverts, the extroverts, and everybody in between to come and have a good time, but also realize that, Adyen we're sponsoring it, little shameless plug, because we also want to know who we are. But I also, it's my way of giving back now that I'm in this organization to say, hey, man, this industry's given me so much. You guys should all be blessed to be in this industry. And we're all friends and peers. We may be competing, but at the end of the day, I put my pants on just like you, one leg at a time.
Are you flying in the air while you're doing it?
Yes, I am.
Okay, just checking. All right.
I am.
Well, all right. So I know we're up on time here. Phil, you're awesome, dude. I can't wait to see you in Vegas. We're gonna have a great time.
Likewise.
We're gonna eat some good food. We're gonna tell some stories. We're probably gonna laugh at some people being silly.
That's one way to put it.
Are you playing pickleball?
Well, I've not been invited for pickleball.
Well,
no.
Yeah, so Troy Hooper and Pepper Lunch.
That's an RLC thing.
Oh, I'm sorry, wrong one. Yeah. I'm already mixed up. Yeah, so that's coming up. We'll plan on some pickleball.
That'll be. I think we did pickleball last year, didn't we?
They did. I didn't play last year.
Very
but
popular.
I think we did it last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
We call it
a coach.
We call it padel in Amsterdam.
Oh, padel.
Padel.
You know, my sister lives just outside of Amsterdam now. She moved there 6-7 years ago. She met a guy who her son and her went and rented a 16th century windmill at Airbnb.
Oh, nice.
My sister fell in love with the miller. They got married a year later, and she lives in a Van Gogh painting now.
That's amazing. What a great story.
The amazing part is she had no hair at the time. She had full cancer then, full chemo, fell in love despite that. She's full remission now, and she lives in beauty, and it's just amazing.
God bless her. That's amazing. What a great story.
It's just freaking cool. Yeah. So, and I'll finish on that good note. Phil, you're
great
amazing. Note. You're fun. This is great. The fact that we're not finger gunning anymore at shows. We're just, hey, what's up, Phil? This is great. Also, we'll be at the Mertech show, and actually we'll be doing a pod. Maybe I can rope you from there to do a little content with us.
I would love it.
Just saying. And we'll be coming by the Adyen booth and doing some fun stuff there too to amplify you guys, because we want to make sure that people know the awesomeness that is Adyen.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always great to talk some tech, have some fun, laughs, and, party on, Wayne.
Last question. Favorite 80s movie on the top of your head? Go.
Favorite 80s on the top of my head? It's Better Off Dead.
I want my $3.
I want my $3.
That's right.
Want some French fries with some French dressing and some French bread? Hey, Ricky, I'm sorry your mom blew up. That's the greatest movie ever. John Cusack, that whole group is awesome.
Absolutely epic. All right, we'll leave it on now. And Better Off Dead, watch it at your local Blockbuster video.
Exactly, right?
Thanks, Phil. We'll see you next time.
All right, cheers.
Bye, Phil.